All right, Shawn. Well, as everybody is coming in today, I would love to hear where everybody is joining us from. I'm in Houston, Texas, where it is, I think the high today is like 98, but it feels like 150 degrees. What's it like in Birmingham?
It's hot. Heat index of 106 today. Great to be with you on the
Oh,
call. So it's just the humidity is 97%.
it is
So
real.
yeah, you're
It's
sweating when you get to your vehicle. If you can identify with that, give us a thumbs up and say hello. Great to have you all on the call today.
Yes, we'd love to hear where you're joining from. It looks like we've got about 30 folks who are already in and more joining. So go ahead and click on the chat and let us know where you're joining from. We would love to hear from you. Shawn, you've been traveling quite a bit. You were in Houston. Where
Yeah,
else have you been lately?
I was in Houston and you weren't there. I'll be in New Orleans this weekend. I'll be in San Antonio the following week.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of what I do. It's kind of what I do. I
You're
see
in
some
Texas a
Alabama
lot.
people. I see West Africa people. I see Maryland, Tennessee people. Great to have you on the
Love it.
call.
Kentucky, Ohio, Murfreesboro, Fred. I was born and raised in Nashville. Love that. Florida. There's a Dallas, Texas. Hey, Steve. Oh, look, somebody's joining us from West Africa. Jack, you
Louisville,
deserve
Kentucky, Canton,
the
Ohio.
more miles away than anybody else, I think. That's awesome. SoCal, Wiley, Texas. That's awesome. Midland, lots of Texans here. Well, thanks
Destin,
everybody
Florida.
for
Wish I was there, Rob.
Salt Lake City. I wish I was there. It's beautiful there right now.
I was there a couple
Not
weeks ago. Beautiful city.
for your birthday, right? Isn't that where you did your birthday trip?
My dad's birthday. It was my dad. Took him to Yosemite, remember?
That's right.
His
That's so
80th
cool.
birthday bucket list.
That is so cool. That's awesome. Well, thanks everybody. We are so excited you're here. We know there are a lot of things that you could be doing on Wednesday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. And we're glad that you're spending it with us. I'm Holly Tate, and this is Shawn Lovejoy. We'll get into some introductions here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Shawn. Make sure all of that is working appropriately for us. And we will dive in to the topic of one-on-one meetings. This is one of my favorite topics, and I know it is for you too, Shawn, which is why I asked you to join me on this. This is such an important topic that a lot of leaders, I'm always shocked, Shawn, about how many leaders are not doing one-on-ones. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat. If you're tuning in today, let us know if you are currently doing one-on-ones. And I would love to know how often. Are you doing them weekly? Are you doing them bi-weekly, once a month? Every organization does them a little bit differently. So let us know there in the chat. And grab your Apple Notes, your Moleskin, your, I don't know, your phone, whatever you use to take notes. Because here's the question that I would love for you to think about today. We're going to ask you this again at the end of our time together. But what could you accomplish if every single one-on-one meeting you have with one of your team members left them engaged and growing? What would your team look like if every single person left a one-on-one meeting with you engaged and growing? I'd encourage you to write that down. Write down some adjectives of that vision of what that would look like with your team engaged and growing. So, Shawn, this is so fun for me because we've gotten to do a lot together this year, actually. 2021 has been a fun collaborative year for us. So, we first met, I remember when I met you, it was at a conference that you used to lead called Velocity Conference at Mountain Lake Church in Georgia. And that was probably almost 10 years, probably 9 years ago now.
You were
That we first
17, I
met.
think, or something like that back then.
Yeah, 17, exactly. No.
Exactly.
I had just joined the Vanderbloemen team. And so that's where I got to join the Vanderbloemen team about 9 years ago and was there for 8.5 years before I transitioned off last fall to start my own marketing consulting company. And in that time, got the honor of being serving you and Courage to Lead. We got to work together on Courage to Lead Live back in March, which was an awesome leadership conference. And then one of my clients, Leadr, offered me a job. It was just incredible. I fell in love with the team, working with them as a client. And so now I'm the SVP of Growth at Leadr, where all day, every day, we're thinking about people development. So how do we help churches and businesses and organizations develop their people? And I know that's your heartbeat too, Shawn. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell us your story and what you're up to at Courage to Lead.
Yeah, I think one of the commonalities, one of the reasons we link and make good partners and friends is we both got some marketplace and ministry experience. We have a heart for both. I know we've got both on the call today. I was a marketplace leader before I was a ministry leader, and now I'm sort of in the marketplace and in the ministry, now. We'll talk about it later, but we have a marketplace and division and a ministry division where we coach leaders, to organizational health. We talk about helping leaders grow stronger, grow healthier, and grow faster, them and their teams. And a lot of that has to do with what we're talking about today. So just honored to be on this call with you, and hopefully we can coach some guys up.
Absolutely. And I love this. I'm looking in the chat. Somebody said, I just started doing my one-on-ones because Shawn told me to in one of our coaching sessions. So there you go. I love that. Sounds like there's a lot of people who are doing them monthly, some bi-weekly. It looks like some people tailor it depending on what the employee needs. So this is going to be good. We've got a lot to dive in today. Well, let's talk about our agenda. So we're going to start, and we're actually going to define the one-on-one meeting. So what is it? Because a lot of different leaders have an idea of what this is. So we're going to define it for you. Then we're going to walk through the elements of an effective one-on-one meeting. I know a meeting sounds really simple, but then when you get into it, I know for me, there's been many times where I walked into a meeting and I thought either one, if I'm leading it, I've realized, oh goodness, I did not do a good job preparing myself or the person that I'm meeting with very well. Or two, I've gotten into a meeting and thought, what in the world am I doing here? This person who's leading this is not prepared. So we want to help you walk away knowing how to lead an effective one-on-one meeting. And then we're going to give you 4 questions to ask in every one-on-one, and then some practical next steps before we dive into Q&A. So as you've got questions, throw them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as we enter Q&A towards the end. Or of course, you can use the Q&A module there at the bottom of your Zoom. And yes, you will get a recording after the event. We will follow up with you for the recording.
Yeah, but one of the, I just want to say one of the values of being here live is allowing us to contextualize your challenges. Because if these aren't going well or you're not doing them consistently, everyone's got a really good excuse on your team, you included. Yep. So we want to help you overcome those hurdles today. So be transparent, be vulnerable, be interactive. Let us know you're out there. If you want to encourage us for delivering free content today, send in some questions. Let us know you're alive out there today.
Absolutely. So good, Shawn. All right. Well, let's dive into the first question, which is, what in the world is a one-on-one meeting? So Shawn, I don't know about you, but I am really amazed at how many leaders, when I ask, hey, are you having one-on-one meetings? A lot of them will say, well, my team knows where to find me. I've got an open door policy. So why do I need to have intentional one-on-one meetings? And I'm like, you're missing the point. So for me, if I could boil it down just really simply, what is a one-on-one meeting? It is intentional time for a manager and a direct report to do 2 things. 1, connect personally and support professionally. The connect personally is huge because I really believe that organizations, John Maxwell says organizations rise and fall on leadership, which of course is true, but really they rise and fall on relationships. And we've got to build trust in order to have those healthy relationships. So that's why connecting personally in those one-on-ones is so important. And then of course, supporting professionally. And I think that support word is really important. There's a reason I chose that support word. We're not talking about micromanaging. We're not talking about, necessarily performance management. We're talking about how can we support our team members professionally. So Shawn, I know you've got a lot to share on this topic. So I'd love to hear from you. How do you define a one-on-one meeting and what that should look like?
Well, I think the key word you said there at the top, I don't want leaders to skip over, is the word intentional. You got to be intentional about how you connect with your team and how you support them. It cannot be, as we go and only if you need me kind of thing. And unfortunately, man, the lion's share, if we're being candid, of the leaders that we work with, they're busy building their products, their programs, their services, their platforms, at the expense of developing and building their people. And I just believe I've come to understand personally through pain. I've got some leadership scars to prove it. That the one-on-one meeting is the most powerful leadership tool we have in our arsenal. We live and die by it. And honestly, as a person who's got a marketplace undergraduate degree, a ministry postgraduate degree, no one ever taught me how to lead a one-on-one meeting. Nobody ever told me I needed to, frankly, nor taught me how to do it. And so when we started, I was 28 years old when I became a senior leader for the first time, Holly, and we had 4.5-hour staff meetings on Monday.
Wow. Like one meeting was 4.5 hours?
Yes. So, and it was a great meeting, right? Because I was leading it.
Of course.
Yes. You never led a bad meeting, right? It was terrible. It was killing people. Number one, it's the definition of Patrick Lencioni says death by meeting, and I did not have one-to-one meeting. I was trying to get all of my coaching, all of my leadership development, all of my vision casting, all of my problem solving, all the issues I was having with that staff person in the group meeting. And over time, I realized I can really, really make the group meeting a lot more compact, a lot more strategic, a lot more intentional by becoming more intentional and focused one-on-one. And John Maxwell was right 30 years ago. Everything rises and falls on leadership, but it rises and falls on the leadership of our team. So if we're leaving them undeveloped, then we're missing out the great harness potential of our, organization. And we need to remember people are human beings, not human doings. Most startling stat to me, Holly, I think you and I have already talked about this offline at some point, but about a month ago, Inc.com released a stat that said up to 41% of the human workforce right now are actively looking around. They're thinking about leaving. And what do they all have in common? My leader doesn't care about me. My leader doesn't know what's going on in our area. People don't want to be managed, but they do want to be led. They do want to know that what they do matters. They want to have significance, especially with the younger and younger generations within our workforce. So a great leader will never say something like, hey, we really need to meet. Because what I don't realize I've communicated in that moment is that I only want to talk to you when there's a problem, or if you're in trouble, or if I need you to do something. I'm literally creating a transactional relationship with my team. I'm communicating that I don't care about them. And the one-to-one meeting is first and foremost an opportunity to show we care and build trust with our direct reports. So our ability to get things done through our team and them grow in their capacity has everything to do with what we call it currently fostering togetherness. And it is something you have to fight for, because early on, your team does not see the value of meeting with you and don't understand. They don't know how to do it either. The sad thing is, if you're the leader, you're probably better at it than anybody else. That's why you need to teach this and model this so that they will do it at every tier, and develop them and coach them to their full potential through your one-on-one meetings. That's really what we're talking about.
So good. I love that stat that you shared, because I think everybody thinks that turnover is happening to everybody else except for them right now, but it is real. I mean, turnover with all of the change that the world has gone through and ministry and marketplace has gone through, there are a lot of people who are thinking, do I really want to stay here? If they feel at all disengaged in their work, they're looking. And so to add to that, I read a stat from Gallup that says, for people that are looking to leave or disengaged in their work, 70% of that variance depends on their relationship with their boss. And that's hard, because it's like, that means us as the leaders, we've got to look in the mirror and go, okay, it's not, I think when people leave, we think, oh, it's about them, right? They weren't the right fit, or they've got something going on in their personal life. But really what the statistics tell us is that 70% of that decision is just the relationship with their boss. And that's why these one-on-one meetings are so important, because it builds relational equity and trust between us and every member of our team. That's so good,
You and I
Shawn.
both seen it working with leaders. You've got people in the ministry and marketplace leaving large organizations with larger salaries, taking a pay cut to find significance, meaning, trust, with their leader. So there's a bottom line effect to this thing. I hate it when people call them soft skills. These types of things, soft skills, these are hard skills, and they literally affect the bottom line of our organizations, whether we're invested into them intentionally or not.
So good. All right. Well, we're going to give you a takeaway for every section of today's agenda. And so here is our takeaway for you today. One, this is like, I could shout this from the rooftop, Shawn, that it's about people development, not performance management. I saw a quote yesterday from, I believe it's one of the executives at Microsoft. And she said, you've got to unlock people to unlock their path to performance. And I think as leaders, we often just go straight to performance because we want to measure that bottom line, like what you just talked about, Shawn, right? We're looking at the numbers and how they all work out, but really it's about the people development, and then performance takes care of itself. If we are engaging our employees, we're developing them as leaders across every level of the organization, performance is going to take care of itself, because they will know how to lead themselves and their team. And then this is a quote from you, Shawn, that I'd love for you to unpack with us, is to humanize your one-on-one meetings, so your team will begin to approach you with more trust and honesty. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by humanizing your one-on-one meetings?
Well, you and I have joked about it offline. We're dominant leaders.
Yep. High D on the desk.
We're naturally task oriented. And people think I eat nails for breakfast. My assistant Caroline, she said, Shawn, your 80% is everyone else's 120%. So I have to intentionally slow down. I have to intentionally, before I jump into problem solving mode, I was a pastor. I was a mega church pastor, and I'm just honest enough to acknowledge my tendency was to jump into the task and completely miss the person, and to use people to get the work done rather than use the work to get people done. But one of the reasons I coach is I've been delivered from a lot of that. I've worked at it, and it is you got your IQ, you got your EQ, your emotional intelligence, then there's your LQ, your leadership quotient. Like, the good news is, if you don't feel like you're good at this, I am a trophy of the fact that you can get thousands of % better, because I have, and I've become a more approachable, accessible human being, with my team, over the years. I've called old team members and apologized to them.
That's awesome, Shawn. That's good leadership right there.
I've improved, and I coach out of the overflow, because if you feel like, man, I'm not good at this, the good news is you can get a lot better at everything we're talking about today if you'll take these simple tools.
So good. We've got some great questions coming in already. Jen, great questions. I'm going to save that one there for the end. Keep them coming, guys. So good. All right, so let's transition to the elements of an effective one-on-one. So we've talked about the why this is important, but now let's dive into what the elements of an effective one-on-one are. So Shawn, I know you've got some really great tangible takeaways for us on this. So talk to us about what an effective one-on-one looks like, and how do we lead them well?
Well, one of the threads you guys are going to hear through, our talks today, and I hope, intentionality is one of those words, but consistency, I hope, is another key word that comes through for everybody. Even predictability, you could say, on growing teams, especially in a virtual environment, is being obliterated. And we work with a lot of fast growing organizations in the marketplace and the ministry, where the team and the culture gets wobbly, because we are so focused on the next thing and buttoning things up and keeping up with the growth and all that, we kind of move off and leave our team, and distance decay happens. While we're helping our team be more competitive, win the day, win the week, win the weekend, we're ignoring that human need for predictability. for some kind of consistency. And I tell my direct team, man, if we have to move my team, move our meeting, that needs to be the exception, not the rule. And if we move it, I don't even want to move it past this week. Like, we've got to meet every week. Imagine what that communicates to your team members, the importance of them, and
Hey,
all.
Shawn.
So you go ahead.
Well, I want to interrupt you because I bet there's a lot of people that were preaching to the choir on what you just said, which is that moving meetings should be the exception, not the rule. But there's probably a lot of people here who are like, yes, but I work for a leader who moves my meeting or cancels it and never reschedules it. So could you give us some advice on, if there's an executive leader in our organization who does that often, is there a way that we can lead up or help them see the value of that consistency?
You're leading me. I think you know what I'm going to say. Because the first thing I say to a leader when they're expressing that frustration to me is, have you told your leader this? Have you told them that you need them? Have you told them that you're stuck without them, that you're paralyzed without them, that you need their feedback, that, you're stuck when they're MIA, and you could do your job so much more effectively, if you could just grab 30 minutes consistently of their time, and you're willing to move your schedule to whatever works for them to be more consistent. And I have found 9 out of 10 times, there's always that guy, that gal that will just not do it. And honestly, long term, it's a free country, Holly. Our country is. I wouldn't work for a leader that would not invest into me. I would be looking. It wouldn't spend time with me, and didn't and saw the product as more important than the people closest to him or her. But we owe that leader honesty, and a lot of times they don't realize what they're doing. It's a bad habit they've gotten into, and so it does allow us to coach up, to say, I don't know how much you realize this, but like, we need you. I know you feel like you're interrupting our agenda, and you feel like you just need to let us alone and do our job, but like, we need time with you. You underestimate the value it brings to me to sit down with you and meet with you consistently. And a lot of leaders have like, aha, wow, I didn't realize you needed me. I thought I was always interrupting your work schedule, whatever.
Yeah.
So be honest about the need for it, and be consistent, be predictable. So we talk about several things really quickly. One, create a consistent rhythm in your one-on-one meetings. We can't tell. I do think that can change depending upon what the life station of your organization, what's going on. It could be every day for a while. It could be every week, might be every other week. I think it will ebb and flow. I'm a big fan of every week. I'm a big
Me
fan
too.
of every week, but I don't know if that's in biblical or anything. It's just an opinion. And then create a predictable pattern in the meeting. Like, people kind of need to know what to expect. If you're both, circling up via Zoom or in person, and you're both looking at each other like deer in headlights of a car, have some kind of consistent pattern. We talk at Courage to Lead about the 5 purposes of meetings, and we offer a downloadable resource. We're going to make that at the end of the workshop today. I'll send you the link today to just internally to create a template. We're going to do a little bit of community time, catch up from the weekend, a little bit of communication, a little bit of collaboration, a little bit of coaching, and we're going to end by cheering each other on. Just working down some kind of quick mental list, kind of build a pattern, and then create some agenda pillars. That's your KPIs, your key performing indicators. Look over your dashboard really quickly. I like for team members to come with like 3 just so you knows. Hey, just so you know, here's what I'm working on. Just so you know, this came up, we handled it. Hey, just so you know, this is happening over here. And they're communicating that, with you, and you're doing the same for them, because they don't know what you do either, leader.
Yep.
They don't know where you're at either, maybe on a golf course somewhere. So it's great for them to know that you're alive and well and awake and out of bed, and you've been actually moving the ball forward. Calendar, opportunities, all those kind of create some agenda pillars that you want to make sure are on there every single week. And I like for team members to kind of agenda up in the one-on-ones. I don't come one-sided with everything I want to say. I actually want you to come as a stakeholder for that. This meeting is for you, not for me. It's for you. It's for your benefit. So I want you to lead the agenda and sort of drive the time, because I'm here for you, not the other way around in those one-on-ones. I think that's important.
Yeah, and that's so good to communicate, especially if it's a less experienced or a team member that's earlier on in their career. Depending on their personality, they might be coming into the meeting and thinking, oh, I can't come with agenda items because this is my boss's meeting. But for you as the leader to really communicate, hey, I want to empower you. I want you to come. Let's collaborate on the agenda ahead of time. Come with your ideas, your challenges, so I can help you solve them, to really help them feel empowered to go that extra step and add agenda items or topics that they want to talk about beforehand. That's so good. You said that so well, Shawn. So I want to do a quick recap of that. Here's just a few bullet points for you to include in your next one-on-one. One, make sure you're providing space to ask really good questions. This is where I want us to shift our mindset. If we are leading one-on-ones that are every single week are more tactical, and we're asking about projects and where are we at on this or that, to me, that means that we're probably not delegating responsibility as well as we should, right? We want to delegate responsibility, not tasks. And so make sure that you're providing space to ask good questions that are more strategic and less tactical, because that will lead your person to be able to follow through on the tactical. Hopefully they'll come with those questions or challenges that they need solved when you ask those good questions. And then what you got to do once you ask those questions is to have active listening. I see so many leaders who are in one-on-one meetings that are distracted. They've got their phone in front of them. They've got, Slack or direct messages pulled up at the same time. Really try to show your team member that they are the most important thing in those 30 minutes. I think that really goes, it's respectful. It goes a long way. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you're talking to somebody who is paying attention to something else. And so really be active in your listening with them. And then of course,
I tell leaders, I tell leaders all the time, like, this really is like a marriage. Like, you got two different people, different strengths and weaknesses. You were hired because or you hired someone because they were strong where you're weak. That's why they're on the team. They complement you. They make you better. And, it's like going out to eat, with your spouse or your significant other and taking 7 phone calls and surfing the internet during dinner and failing to make eye contact. Like, what does it communicate, to your spouse, your significant other, if you're totally distracted, you're not emotionally present? I can't tell you how many leaders I've observed and witnessed who go to their meetings with their direct reports and their phone's blowing up, they're texting back and forth, they're, 1 minute, I need to step out, instead of saying, no, this moment in time right now with my direct report is the most important thing in my life and has 1000% of my focus. What that makes your team members feel like $1 million, just like it does in a marriage, with your significant other, making eye contact, being emotionally present. We underestimate how that validates our team.
So good. So good. It's all about the relationship. So right. And then of course you touched on this, Shawn, it's all about coaching, accountability, and then consistency. Show up as the leader. And if you can't make it, of course, that's okay. But make sure you reschedule it and give the person a heads up of why you're not able to make it that week. Don't just skip it. That shows the opposite of what you were just talking about, Shawn. It shows that they were forgotten or not as important. And I found, if, let's say, maybe there are going to be some days where in that one-on-one, you're waiting on an important call, just at the beginning of that meeting, go ahead and let them know, hey, Shawn, I do want to let you know there might be a call come in that I'm going to have to step out for, but please know that that is the only thing that could take me away from you during this time right now. Just communicate and be upfront about that before the meeting. So
that's fantastic. That's great work.
Well, one thing that you talked about, Shawn, that I really, really appreciated was 2 things. One, those agenda pillars and two, the collaborative nature of the agenda throughout the week. And so I want to give you guys, show you, I know we've got some Leadr customers here on our webinar today, and then we've got some people who have never even heard of Leadr. So I wanted to show you what this looks like for real. This is my Leadr instance. So this is our software, people development software. And the one-on-one meeting is the heart of our tool. And so this is a real meeting with my boss, our CEO, Matt. You can see his profile there on the right. So I get to see his strengths and his favorite food and how he hates coffee and likes Red Bull. But you can see under the topics, we're collaborating throughout the week. So I can add topics, he can add topics, we can add notes and have conversations. So when we get to that one-on-one, we're able to really focus on problem solving and not just the tactical, where is this project, right? We've also got our goals front and center. That's going to be part of our takeaway, is that make those goals front and center so you're both aligned with where your focus is that week. So Shawn, I know you have a concept that you talk about, action-oriented meetings. So talk to us a little bit about what that means for you and some recommendations for leaders to make sure that we're not just having conversations that don't go anywhere in our one-on-ones, but we can actually take action from them.
Yeah. So what I love about what you're showing there from the Leadr platform is that another common mistake I see leaders make when they meet their direct reports is that nothing is documented. Mm-hmm. And to be a healthy system, you got to have clarity and you got to have accountability. So you can't hold someone accountable to something that's not clear. So we tell leaders, listen, have accessible minutes. It needs to be accessible to both parties. Don't ever meet with someone unless one person, usually the person who's below in that relationship, is taking notes, not on like, well, I said this and they said this and he said this. I'm not talking about Robert's Rules of Order. Yeah. I'm talking about what was decided, who's responsible for it, when is it due, and when we talk about it again. And man, the great thing about this platform is that's immediately accessible to both of us in the meeting. And a lot of times when I go back and read these the next day, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not at all what Holly told me. Mm-hmm. Like there's been a loss of clarity immediately. No wonder we didn't execute. So you can sort of clear that up. But then of course, the next meeting, guess what we do? We kind of bring it up. Hey, let's look at was there anything we talked about last meeting that we said we were going to have done by this meeting? And I usually tell my direct reports, have a little bit of time between meetings to plan your follow through, your execution, to make sure that you are taking action on what we talk about. If you want to lose elite talent, waste their time. Like meet with them all the time, but don't give clarity as to what you're expecting and don't hold them accountable. So it's literally over time viewed as a distraction and a waste of my time versus a good investment. If you want to encourage elite talent, man, help them feel like, gosh, we make decisions. I'm held accountable. I'm pushed. I'm stretched. I get clarity, focus, for my one-on-one meetings. That's powerful. And all of a sudden, your team members start looking forward to these meetings. It is the playing field where we execute and score. And I'm not going to miss one of those. I don't want to miss one of those. I want to be there because great things happen there.
That's so good. And the other thing too, that those action-oriented meetings or minutes have is for you as the leader to follow through. I think it is incredible when you leave that meeting. For me, I know like when I leave my meetings with Matt and there were a couple action items that were on his plate, there's often like in the back of my mind, I'm like, is he going to remember to do that and follow through? And then I see that email comes through because he's done something that he promised he would. And it's like, wow, he was engaged, he was paying attention, and he really cares about me as his team member because he followed through on his commitment. And so taking action-oriented, minutes or meetings, or for us, you can turn a topic into an action item or a task. It's a game changer because it actually helps you go from conversation to action. So good, Shawn. All right, we've got some practical takeaways. So in your next one-on-one, 5 things. 1, show up. That should be the easiest part, but it's
on time. On time.
On time. And then 2, create a simple, predictable agenda. So this is what Shawn was talking about with those pillars. If you're a Leadr customer, you can make recurring agenda items. in every meeting. 3, collaborate ahead of time. Empower your team member to come to you with agenda topics ahead of time. 4, have goals front and center. Make sure that you're going back to those goals. Team members want to win. I don't know anybody that says, you know what, I'm okay with failing. I'm good. Your team wants to win. And so having those goals front and center reminds them of how they can win. And then what we just talked about, turn those topics into action items so you can execute. So good. All right. Before we talk about, before we dive into Q&A, which I'm seeing some questions come in through the Q&A panel, keep them coming. Let's transition to 4 questions to ask in every one-on-one, Shawn. So these are so good, because I know a lot of us are like, okay, I get it, but what do I actually ask? Like, what should those pillar topics be? And so we've got 4 questions that you can take with you in your next one-on-one. So the first is, what's working right now? This is a great way to help, especially if a team member is really hard on themselves. Maybe they're like me, one of those type A's. Often I need to be reminded to reflect on what's actually working. How am I winning right now? Because I'm going to come with all of the things that aren't working. And it's good for me to be reminded by my leader that what's working and where am I winning right now. The second
other
one
questions
is,
are
go ahead.
like, what are you excited about? Tell me
Yeah.
something great that happened, this week. I think it's one of the toughest ones to really force people to celebrate, because I think most everybody's tendency is to focus on the problems,
Yeah.
and so really starting with what's going right, right now, and holding them accountable. A lot of times I'll have a team member try to skip over this element. Oh, no. We want to start with what's right, what's good, what's working, and not just focus on all the problems, because that's a miserable work environment that only focuses on the problems and not the possibilities and the progress, etc.
Yeah, you said that at the very beginning of our time together today, which was where when you say, can we meet, right? That means that that shows your team member that you only want to meet with them when there's something wrong. And so asking this question at the beginning of every one-on-one helps remind them that there's some psychological safety here. Let's talk about how you're winning and what's working. And then of course, a great second question is, what challenges are you facing? Not because we want them to feel shame or be afraid to bring up where they might be failing or challenges that they're facing, but because we're there to support them. Remember, we're connecting personally and supporting professionally. So asking them what challenges they're facing will really help us as their leader know how we can help remove bottlenecks for them in their role. And then what resources do you need? So there's nothing worse for your team to share the challenges that they're facing and then not be resourced to help overcome those challenges. So ask, okay, great. Those are some good challenges you're facing. What resources do you need? What do you need from me to help overcome those? Maybe it's something in the budget. Maybe it's an additional team member. Maybe it's a brainstorming session. So ask them what resources they need. This is so good to get ahead of something before it's too much of a problem. I've been there where I've led a one-on-one before. I've asked too late, and then my team member is so overwhelmed that they don't even know how to ask for help because I haven't asked early enough how I can resource them. And then the fourth question is, how can I best support you? So that third and fourth question are similar, but I like breaking them apart because often when we ask, how can I support you? That's different than what resources do you need? So being able to separate those and ask, there might be some tangible resources your team needs that you need to then go and find areas in the budget to support them, but then also personally supporting them. Maybe there's a question that you need to ask them on a weekly basis to help hold them accountable, or maybe you're doing something that isn't helpful, and this gives them the opportunity to say, when I hear this is the story that I tell myself, and so it'd be really great if we could do this instead. So here are 4 questions you can ask in your next one-on-one. Shawn, I don't know if you have anything to add to those, but just wanted to keep it really simple for people today.
I would just say, what we're talking about here really flips the organizational chart.
Mm-hmm.
From you're here to do what I tell you to do and bow down in the process, to I'm here to help make you be successful and feel successful and win and grow and make progress. I'm here to coach you, challenge you, encourage you, stretch you, help you be more effective, man, your team members will take a bullet for you when they
Mhm.
feel supported like that. And I hardly ever close a meeting with my direct reports without saying, hey, is there anything else I can do for you? Is there any other way I can help you, be effective and help you help me this week?
Yes.
Anything I can do. And oftentimes after I ask it 2 or 3 ways, like, well, there's one thing.
Mhm.
And now we're getting somewhere, and robust dialogue ensues. And, some things that I've let fall through the cracks, which inevitably happens, and some resources that they need. And so you'll have to mind for that as the leader. You'll have to mind for that transparency, but that consistency and that trust and the relational equity like builds that authenticity and helps your team members, open up. That's why I like more than once a month, because if we try to meet once a month and we miss 2, we're only face to face 10 times a year. How are we going to build this kind of relationship where we feel that, to talk to each other? So in general, we need to be doing more of this, guys.
Yeah, Shawn, one thing Matt Trusted, our CEO, shared recently in a training for our own team that I thought was so powerful. He said, organizations move at the speed of trust. Organizations move at the speed of trust. So think about it. If you're only having a one-on-one once a month, and that is your greatest opportunity to build trust with your team member, your organization is going to move a lot slower. Your team's going to move slower. You're going to move slower as a leader. They're going to move slower as a contributor to the team. So I agree with you. I really love to see teams do this on a weekly basis, because if nothing else, it just helps build trust on a weekly basis. And so then you're able to move that much faster because you're building trust faster. So good.
Just one last strong statement. I wouldn't hire them and put them on your team if you can't meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
Experience won't make you better. It's performance followed by feedback makes you better. Tom Brady still has a quarterback coach.
Wow.
If experience made you better, he would eventually opt out and not need a coach. But he knows he's going to drop his elbow over time. He knows he still needs feedback, and your team needs it too. So don't put more people reporting to you than you can meet with on a weekly basis. This could affect the way you look at your entire organizational structure, because I don't want more people reporting to me than I can meet with and develop. I can manage 17 people, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I can't develop and invest, meet with, coach 17 people. It's going to be 3 to 5 most of the time that I'm going to be able to really, really, invest into. So hope that helps.
So good. All right, let's talk about some practical next steps. We've got some resources both from Courage to Lead and Leadr. And I'm already seeing we've got 5 questions coming in. I've seen Michelle and Rob. So good. We're going to dive in. Real quick, couple of amazing resources from Courage to Lead. Shawn mentioned this earlier, the 5 purposes of meetings is a free download. So go to couragetolead.com/resources, or just couragetolead.com, very top resources, click, and they've got so many awesome free downloads, but this one is so pertinent to what we're talking about today. And then Shawn, would love for you to share with us, you founded Courage to Lead. What has it been? 6 years, 5 years now?
6 years this month.
Amazing. And you coach both ministry and marketplace leaders, but you're launching courageouspastors.com like right now, I think, like as we speak, right?
Yeah, obviously, we're content, training, podcasts, courses, all those have their place. But you and I have been mentored and coached by some extraordinary leaders. I tell leaders all the time, Holly, if you're ever hearing me talk and you're like, I've heard that somewhere before, I guarantee it. I've never had an original thought. I've had great coaches, and so as you try to implement this, you're going to have setbacks and hit speed bumps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we would love to coach you through the complexities of work, instilling this into your team. So couragetolead.com/strategy is the way to do that, whether you're a marketplace or a ministry leader. But we are launching, I didn't want it to go without saying, and it's live now, but no one knows it. A ministry-focused site now just for pastors that are wrestling with this, courageouspastors.com. And we'd love to make ourselves available to coach you through some of this and help you grow, your team grow, and your church grow as well.
That's awesome. Brian McDaniel just said, excited to be part of courageouspastors.com. So you've already got some fans. That's awesome. And then over on the Leadr side, so here are the 3 ways that we help organizations engage and grow their team. So we're people development software. We're going to help you with leadership development, core HR, and health plans. So one of the core HR and health plans came out of the fact that as we were helping organizations with leadership development through software, we saw a big need for core HR. It's like, we're still doing manual PTO, or I have no idea how to provide benefits for my team. And I'm losing people because of it, because we're not caring for our team well, because we're not providing health plans, right? Or benefits administration, PTO, company directories, all of those things. But our heartbeat is really to help you through the one-on-one meeting, which you stole the words right out of my mouth, Shawn. We also believe it's the most powerful leadership development tool you have. Through that one-on-one, you're able to develop your people, which helps them be engaged and growing on your team. And so we'd love to show you a demo. So reach out to us. You can go to leadr.com. There's a button that says request demo, or you'll see a pop-up. You can chat with our team. I know James is waiting on the other end right now on our team to chat with you. We'd love to give you a custom tour of the tool so you can see if this would be a good fit for you and your leadership development, HR, and health plans for your team. And then just want to remind you, so go back to your notes, that very first question that we asked, what could you accomplish if every one-on-one meeting you had with your team member left them engaged and growing? So go look at that answer that you wrote down, and then and just imagine that, and that you can do that with these takeaways that we've given you today. And then quick recap, it's leadr.com, encouragetolead.com/strategy. And with that, Shawn, I want to jump over to Q&A. Okay, so we had one of the first ones that came through. I think it was Jen. I'm going to scroll back up here. You mentioned, Shawn, how you and I are both high D, where we tend to just like jump right into action, and we have to force ourselves to really slow down and connect relationally. What if you're the opposite? So what if you're a high I, or maybe a high S on the disc, and you're very relational and you struggle more with the execution or being action oriented? What are some, I don't know if it's pillars or some advice you have in leading those one-on-ones to help drive ourselves as a leader toward action when we might not be naturally wired that way?
Yeah, that's where the intentionality and the discipline comes back. Either way, if you're a task-oriented person, you have to make yourself do this and build it in. If you're a relational person, you need to limit the time and not let it run too long, and not talk about football or golf too long.
Yeah.
And because most people don't care about it. So and then being intentional about the way you do that time. So how was everybody's weekend? So that's that intentionality part. Like, it's good to ask that every once in a while, but if you ask the same question every week, you become like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, wah, wah.
Yes.
So mix it up. It up. One of the fun things we've done with executive teams is to have a hot seat time. So every week somebody has 5 minutes, they're on the hot seat, and anybody, in that team can ask them anything they want to, and vice versa. So team meetings, one-on-ones, you can shake it up, have some fun with it, and be intentional. Like, what have we not talked about in a while? Vacations coming up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, how can I talk about, hey, what are you guys binging on Netflix right now? Just get inside each other's life a little bit and shake it up, and think about, before you go into the meeting, how to do that. But limit the time. Let's be disciplined and consistent, so we start on time, end on time, and people appreciate that.
So good. All right. Our next one is from Andrew. How do I get people to give high level feedback? Sometimes it seems they either have nothing to say, not sure what to say, or don't have the capacity to give high level feedback. I do sometimes get low level feedback. So what's some advice for Andrew, Shawn?
I'll answer, and then you can answer.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I like proactively to build in that, what I call the just so you know time. And I proactively tell our team members, you're at this meeting for 2 reasons. 1, to bring value. 2, to receive value. So if you don't speak up, if you don't tell me what's going on, then you're eliminating 50% of the reason that we meet.
Yeah.
So say, I don't really have anything to talk about today is not an option in our meeting. Like you've got to be proactive. So, and same with me, I'm going to come to that meeting with at least 3 things to share. I think would be good for you just to know, just a
Mm.
need to know, basis. And I'm going to constantly remind, and if somebody doesn't do that, it's a coaching opportunity. No, I need to
So
know. I want to know. And of course, somebody who struggles in the past with micromanagement, the more that I've told my team many times over the years, the more you're proactive in communicating to me, the less I'll feel the need to dig in beneath the skin. I'll,
yes.
I won't ask as many questions, dig in and probe if you're proactively in giving me the information. If my teenage kids come home and they say it was good, I'm not sure, it was fine, and they don't tell me who they were with and what they were doing, well, I'm going to dig in, But if
Yeah.
they tell me what they're up to, who they're with, where they went, all of that, great, thank you, glad you had a good time. And
Yep.
it can be that way with your team. And so teaching them that shows them it's to their benefit to open up and share more.
Exactly. It's I've heard someone say, if your manager, your boss, your leader is asking, then it's too late. So to be able to set that expectation
Right.
early, to say, I love proactive communication as your leader. Like, you can never bother me enough. Don't feel like you're ever bothering me. Be proactive, keep me in the loop. That's going to help us make sure that we're building trust and that I'm not having to check in, which can feel like micromanagement. That's so good, Shawn. Okay, Rob says, how do you know when you've communicated well in meetings? Are there some tangible things to look for that lets you know the meeting was a win? So one thing that I would share, this is something that me being on the Leadr team has really taught me that I love, that's a value that we do, which is we have a culture of recaps. So when we have meetings with each other, it doesn't matter how serious or how casual the meeting is, we'll send a recap. Now, I don't do this for every one-on-one because we're using Leadr. And so we've got what we've talked about. It's already tracked there in our software. But if there's something that we want to document so that we can really remember and go back to it, I'll just send a quick recap. Hey, Matt, here's a quick recap of our meeting today, few bullet points. Want to make sure we're on the same page. Here's what I'm thinking for moving forward or what I'm going to be working on. Are we on the same page? And it just gives a good opportunity to make sure that you're on the same page. Because there's nothing worse when you walk away from that meeting and then you realize a week later you were on completely different wavelengths. So another way, Rob, if it's actually in the meeting, is to ask, does that make sense from your perspective? And give them an opportunity to repeat back to you what you just said. That's a really great way to make sure that you're on the same page. So yeah, Shawn, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but I also want to make sure we've got so many awesome questions. I want to make sure we
I
can
think
rock
it's
them
so
all.
good right at the end of the meeting. So, okay, let's recap. Like, what do we agree
Mhm.
to today? What did I agree to today? I don't remember.
Yeah,
We talked about a
right?
lot. What did I agree to? What do you agree to? And you realize a lot of time that moment there's been clarity loss already. No wonder we're not going to execute. And we always clean up a few things. Oh yeah, I misheard that. Or, oh, I didn't hear it that way. Or I didn't understand that was my job. Happens right there in that moment if we'll do that recap. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so good. All right, Rob also asked in the Q&A panel, is this template available? The template is amazing. That's actually a great, Rob. I'll make sure we put that in our Leadr templates, so that every customer has that there in our Leadr library. But we'll also send out an email so you get the slides and a recording of this. So you've got those 4 questions. I'm glad that they were helpful. That's great. Okay, let's see. All right, we already answered that other one from Rob. Okay, Scott, what do you do when you ask questions and ask them for agenda items, but you still get one-word answers and find yourself talking 90% of the time? So you answered this a bit, Shawn, that really it's setting that expectation that they need to be proactive and bring things ahead of time. Anything else you'd add to Scott there?
It's just a coaching conversation. I think sometimes as a new leader, an inexperienced leader, it was true for me when I was younger. You get frustrated really quickly because they don't get it, but no one has ever taught them how to do this like you're getting today. So it's what I said at the outset. Like, the bad news is you're the best in the world at this on your team, probably. It's downhill from here, sister.
Yeah.
So you've got to coach them and teach them and equip them. Don't get frustrated at them because they don't know how to lead up. because they don't know how to bring an agenda. It's your job to help them to do that. So be gentle, be patient, be diligent, be consistent, and coach them. If they don't come with enough, that's just a coaching conversation. It's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean they're not the right person or they're stupid. It just means they need coaching. They need equipping, and you can do that and equip them to come to that meeting with a better agenda and better feedback.
So good. Hey, Dan's question is kind of similar, but I'd love to hear, I have a thought on this one. I'd love to hear what you would add. So Dan says, when you ask if there is anything else you can do to help them, and the person ends up asking you to do elements of their role that they should do, how do you push back to hold them accountable to do their role? So Dan, what I often like to do is to say, so let's say that happens. The person says, I'd really like for you could help me by doing this task. To push back and say, okay, great. So this responsibility, let's say it's a small group thing that they're planning. So, I'd really love to see you take ownership of this goal of getting, 10% more people involved in small groups. So here's what I would like to see. Next week, could you come back to me with a proposal or a strategy of how you think we can get there? Right. So it's showing them that it's not about the tasks. It's about thinking about what is the end goal and how are we going to get there? For me, I found that sometimes folks who are stuck in the weeds, they need our help as the leader to help them get out of the weeds for a minute and see that vision to build that strategy to get there. And then in that next meeting, you can say, great. Hopefully it was good. If it wasn't, you can give them feedback on how that strategy can be improved, and then help them create some milestones to achieve that strategy. And there might be elements of that you can help them with at that point, but they're really owning the responsibility of the outcome or the desired goal. So that would be a piece of advice. Use it as a coaching moment. Don't be afraid to give that feedback. But Shawn, what would you say in addition to that for Dan?
Yeah, I would just say, repeat after me, Dan. I trust you to take a shot at that.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Using that word trust in that sentence.
I trust you. Take a shot at that. Hey, why don't you draft something, shoot it over to me, and I'll take a look at it. That puts the ball squarely back, in their court. And a lot of times it's because, Dan, they're not lazy. They're apprehensive. They're apprehensive. They're afraid of going out and getting their wrists slapped or worse and failing. So letting them know that they can't get fired or in trouble by making a mistake or not doing it like you would want it done, and that you're going to protect them, that you'll take a look at it before it goes out or before it, it's public or whatever, really protects them, and they feel really empowered to then go and take a shot at it. So sometimes they're lazy, and we don't want to raise enabled codependent children, so no, you clean your room. I'm not going to pick up after you. It's just it's kind of a guardrail kind of thing. But a lot of times they're just apprehensive, and they need to know you trust them to go take a whack at it.
So good. So good, Shawn. So a couple of real practical questions. Laura asks, how much time should be allotted for a typical one-on-one, 30 minutes or an hour? So I'm a big fan of having them on a weekly basis, and that's a 30-minute meeting. There might be a time where you need 45 minutes, but I would say if you're having them on a weekly basis, 30 minutes should really be a good touch point every week. What would you say, Shawn?
Yeah, I would say early on with a new team member, you might need a little bit more time. You're building trust. The longer you've been with a team member, probably, you've built a lot of relational equity and trust. You don't want to skip over the human being part over time, but you may not need as much, over time. When I've got a new team member and we're building trust, I need more information from them and they need more information from me. So it might take longer on the front end, and you tell them this, hey, let's take a little bit more time on the front end. Then we get in a good rhythm with tighten that thing up, and we'll get better and better at it over time. And whatever you do, be a good steward of their time. I mentioned this earlier, but start on time and end on time.
Yes. Respectful.
Start on time and end on time, or they will dread your meeting.
So
whatever
good.
Time limit you set, land the plane.
That's right. Land the plane. Okay. And then my last question.
And we got 1 minute to do that.
I know, 1 minute. Okay. Landing the plane. So Santiago and then someone else, I missed who it was, asked, they're either new to an organization and they either or the organization does not have one-on-ones and they're getting some pushback on people that don't want to make time to have those developmental meetings, how can you get started implementing the rhythms of one-on-one in your organization? What would you say, Shawn?
Anytime in an organization you're selling a new idea, don't sell the what, sell the why.
Yeah.
We're not selling meetings. We're selling trust. We're selling cohesiveness. We're selling communication. We're selling collaboration. We're selling, getting things done, diminishing frustration, hanging on to elite talent, etc. And the meetings are just a conduit.
So good. And then I know this sounds like a sales pitch, but it's the reason why I stopped building my company and joined this company full time is I would say purchase Leadr, because that's literally why the software was created, because there wasn't a tool to help us really implement that why that you're describing, Shawn, because nobody wants to. I mean, can you imagine going to your team and saying, hey guys, I just bought a performance management software to track your performance and manage you. What? Yeah. No. Yeah. But to say, hey, we are investing in you, because whether you stay here for 20 years or whether you leave to go serve somewhere else, we want to make you better. And so we are investing in developing you. And so here's what that's going to look like. We're going to have regular one-on-ones. We're going to give consistent feedback. You're going to have regular reviews. That helps them feel empowered and equipped and developed and not managed. Well, with that, Shawn, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're headed to a leadership conference. You're just going to keep the pattern going, thinking all about leadership today. And we're so grateful for all you do to help leaders. So make sure you go to couragetolead.com/strategy. Shawn gives free coaching calls, a strategy session, so you can get a little taste of that and see if that's something that you can bring into your team. And then we'd love to show you a demo of Leadr. Thanks, Shawn. And thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Holly. Thanks guys for tuning in.